At 50, I don't always want a full glam face. Sometimes I just want to look fresh, rested and well put together without looking like I'm wearing a load of makeup. Today I'm sharing the minimal routine that does exactly that. Stick around to see what makeup choices I have made to create this minimal, barely there makeup look. First, the brows with this Patrick Tar laminating brow gel, just to tidy things up here before we go in with our base. Today I'm going to be using an Estee Lauder SkinTint foundation. So rather than going in with a full foundation, because we're looking to have a minimalist makeup look, we are going to be using this product here. It is the Futurist SkinTint Serum with botanical oil infusion. This is going to be in the shade 2C0, which is Cool Vanilla. I've got a feeling this might be a little bit on the light side for me, but we will give it a go and see how we get on with it. I'm going to give this a good shake because it feels rather liquidy. It does come with kind of like a dropper applicator, which makes me feel like I should be applying it directly to my face. Let's do that and just blend it in with a brush. This is shade 2C0, which it describes as Cool Vanilla. I suspect it might be a bit light for me. I am trying out cool tone foundations now to see if they're a better match with my soft summer colour season. This does look a little bit light, but fear not, we will warm it up with some bronzer later. But more importantly, what I want to see is, does this, because it's a skin tint serum, I want to see if this gives us a less foundation-y finish. I have perhaps applied more than is necessary for our minimalist makeup look. But minimal doesn't necessarily mean we haven't put makeup on, it just means that the end result is not going to look like a high glam, very made up look, which is kind of where I was when I was working in a corporate office. I wanted to look polished and like I had put some effort into my appearance, but the last thing I wanted was to look kind of like I'd walked in with a full face of glam. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and actually I sometimes wished I had the confidence to do that, but most days I just wanted to look kind of polished and well put together. And I think that's where a product like this skin tint is going to do really well, because it's not going to look overly foundation-y. It's just going to give us that even complexion finish that makes us look kind of clean and well rested and well cared for. And actually, that colour's not too bad, is it? We can warm it up a little bit with our bronzer, but actually that's not as ghostly and pale looking as I was worried it might be. So that's another thing. Perhaps the colour choice with the skin tints might also be a little bit more forgiving, which is useful to know. I'm actually really enjoying this brush. This came out of the number 7 advent calendar, and I'm really finding this very useful. We've got the foundation sort of application end this side, and then the foundation buffing side this end. And I'm thinking that this shape is perfect for going around the face. It kind of fits all around the cheekbones, it fits into the eyes. And I see people using these big foundation brushes like this, and I have tried to use them and I just think they are really fat and clumsy. So I'm on the lookout right now for more brushes shaped like this, because I think this is perfect. Okay, so that is our base done with our Estee Lauder Futurist Skin Tint Serum. I'm pretty pleased with that. I think that's looking fairly minimalist. It looks natural. It looks a lot like my skin, I would say. So let's move on now and warm things up with a little bit of bronzer and some blush. So the most natural looking bronzer I have found so far for my skin tone is the Estee Lauder Bronze Goddess in the shade 01 Light. And I'm finding this is about the lightest shade that I have found so far. And I can kind of pile this on without it looking too much. It just blends really nicely into my skin tone. So for our minimalist makeup look today, I think this is the one we're going to go for. So just because we're going for a minimalist look doesn't mean that we don't want some facial sculpting. And this Bronze Goddess, I think, is absolutely perfect just for introducing the slightest hint of sunshine and the slightest hint of a bit of sculpting to the face. So not only do I like to go around the hairline, I also like to bring it across the cheeks where we're going to put our blush on top of our bronzer in a bit. And for me, I love to put a little bit of bronzer on my eyelids to warm us up before we go in with a full shadow. And that also means I can bring it down my nose a little as well. But look how subtle this shade is. I mean, you can barely see it. If you are frightened of contour and bronzer, this Bronze Goddess is a really good introduction and an excellent place to start. So I want to use a little bit of face powder next just to set everything in place. I am struggling a little bit with colours of the powders. I have a Surrealskin Soft Blur Setting Powder by Makeup by Mario here in Neutral Light. That I'm finding a little bit light for me. But I also have this Estee Lauder one in Light Medium Matte, and this is the Double Wear Sheer Flattery Loose Powder. I'm just contemplating which one to go in with. I think I'm going to go with the Mario today to begin with. If it's looking a little bit ghostly, then we can always move on and darken things down with the Estee Lauder. But this isn't really to give us any colour. It's simply to set the makeup in place and help it have a bit more longevity for the day. Unfortunately, all of the powder has migrated up and through the plastic holes, so I have to be very careful with this. And I'm just going to dip this in and then knock that down in the lid. So next up, I want to go in with a subtle bit of eyeshadow. And I'm only going to probably use maybe one or two colours to create just some shaping and some depth to the eyelids. I have a few options here actually, depending on kind of your colour preferences and the look you would prefer for the day. We could go in with the Estee Lauder eye palette that came in the Estee Lauder Blockbuster. That has got some really nice everyday shades in it as well. So we could go in with that one. Alternatively, I could use this special edition Christian Dior, which has also got some really nice kind of everyday shades in there to wear. I'm kind of looking for a light and a dark shade, or a light and a mid-tone shade to just create some subtle depth. And another option I have available is the Makeup by Mario eye palette. And I'm thinking these brown taupes down the side would make for a nice basic eye as well. So let me just consider which one I want to go with. So I have just swatched the Dior. I was hoping to go in with the Dior, but having just swatched them on my fingers, I'm finding they are looking a little bit shimmery. So for our minimalist look today, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to go in with one of the other palettes which have got more matte shades in it. I know that the Estee Lauder shades suit me, but we also have these Makeup by Mario taupes and browns as well. So I actually want to give these a try. I think there's a couple of mid-tones here that I can go in with. There's this one here and there's also this slightly pinker one over here. So I think I'm going to give those two a go, and if we need to go in with any more depth, then we'll find something from one of the other palettes to bring into the equation. So I've gone in with one of these tones. I've actually gone in with the one that I thought was going to be slightly warmer, but it is coming out cool on my eyes. So it just shows you that sometimes the shade in the palette isn't what you actually get when you put it on your eyes. It has come out fairly cool. I'm just blending out the edges so we don't have any harsh lines, and then I'm gonna go in a little bit with the other shadow on the lid. I'm finding this is a very cool toned palette actually. This is the Makeup by Mario. It is the Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette. And if you are looking out for cool tones, then these are pretty cool on my skin. So the temptation is always there to keep going with the eyeshadow, but as we are doing a minimalist look, I'm going to leave it there. So for blush, I am going to try using a powder and a cream. First of all, I have, for the powder blush, I have this Estee Lauder one in the shade Peach Passion. I think we can use this for our powder shade, and then I am going to go over that with a cream shadow. I have this Dior one here in the shade Candy, and I think then we can use that to add a little bit of moisture back over the top of our blush for a kind of natural everyday look. So I've had some interesting comments on other videos saying that I'm applying my blush too far down my face, which is interesting because I have rather a long face, and the opinion in some of the comments is that I'm placing my blush too far down near to my mouth. Now, this is something I've done a bit of research on, and I've seen other people do videos the same. When you have a slightly long face, sometimes it may appear that your blush is slightly low. Not because it is low, but simply because there is a lot of length here to cover. And if I just apply my blush up here, basically it's not going to reach the bottom of my cheekbone. My cheekbone is very clearly down here. And it's simply not possible to apply the blush here without it sort of pointing down towards my mouth. So the idea that I'm just going to put my blush kind of up here above my nose and leave all of this bare is a little bit baffling to me. So if you think that my blush is in the wrong place, I'm afraid I don't agree with you at all. So that's about it for our powder blush. But I do still want to go over the top with some cream blush, and I'm going to try to blend this in with the same brush as before. I'm not going to put it directly on my cheeks because I don't want a big streak to move the blusher that we already have. So what I'm going to do is dab my brush on the end of this stick here and try and just build up a little bit of a cream blush over the top to give us a slightly more kind of everyday natural flushed look. Okay, there's a bit too much actually on the brush, so let me remove some of that, otherwise we might have to go in with a clean brush to blend that out. And this is something you have to be really careful of with blushes. The pigment in them is so variable from one to the next. The powder blush we just used, you could barely see any colour coming out, but this cream one from Dior is very highly pigmented. So now I look rather a little bit over blushed, I would say. Certainly for the minimalist look we were going for. So let's go in over that with a little bit more powder to try and dampen that effect down. Rather a shame that we've lost the cream finish now, but at least we have a bit more of a natural glow going on rather than too pink on our chinks. Okay, so I think now in terms of our base, we have a fairly natural looking base. You can always go in with a little bit less of the Serum foundation, a little bit less of the powder, a little bit less of the blush, a little bit less of the eyeshadow if this look is too much for you. But I think the overall effect is very natural, and we're just going to finish it up with some eyeliner, some mascara and some lips. But we will keep it gentle, keep it soft so that it still looks like a minimalist makeup look. I'm trying to get back into the habit of curling my lashes because I think it does make quite a big difference. I have this eye pencil here from Stila. It's a Stay All Day Smudge and Set waterproof gel eyeliner in the shade Espresso. I'm just going to line along the top lashes a little bit to create some definition here before we go in with our mascara. I I generally have quite a problem with gapping when I'm applying my eyeliner near to my upper lashes. But this eyeliner somehow doesn't do that. I'm able to kind of sweep it back and forth along the edge, and it manages to go between the lashes somehow. Okay, that's all I want to do for our natural eye look. And then actually I was planning on using a brown mascara, but I think all the brown mascaras I have to hand are actually quite dramatic. They apply quite a lot of mascara. It gives you that kind of like spiky separated lashes. And one of the mascaras that I've used before that gives what I would call is like a soft finish, not that kind of harsh, like highly defined lashes, but it gives like a soft finish, is this Clinique High Impact Mascara. So although this is in black, I think the final effect is much more subtle than you get with a lot of the mascaras on the market today. And maybe it's got something to do with this brush. It's a kind of a classic fluffy brush. I think this gives a much more subtle mascara finish than a lot of the other mascaras around. And so for our minimalist look, this is the one I've chosen to go with because I think this is looking the most natural. And I'm not going to keep going layering it up because obviously we're looking for a natural finish. So we've just got some subtle emphasis and I think a nice soft lash. Okay, and I've got a couple of lip options for you. If you want to go with the subtle kind of glossy lip, again, we've got the Clinique, we've got the Pink Honey and the Black Honey. Let me just demonstrate these for you. I haven't gone in very hard with it because I'm going to try several different lips, but that is the Pink Honey. So if you want a barely there look, I think that is really good. It just gives you that slight finish, that slight gloss without really adding a lot of colour. So the Pink Honey is a good option if you just want this kind of minimalist look without a lip. If you want to go in a little bit darker, you can always go with the Black Honey. And the great thing about these is you don't need to use a lip liner. You don't need to worry too much about the shape of your lips. You just kind of swipe and go. And I think these look really pretty actually. That is lovely. But if you do want a more classic finished lip for your minimalist look, we're going to move on and give you one of those as well. So I've got this Lancome lip pencil in the shade The Tea is Hot to line our lips with. I think for me this is a nice neutral everyday colour. And the lipstick that I have is from Estee Lauder. It is a pure colour lipstick matte in the shade 868 Influential. And I think that's a really natural looking, flattering, everyday minimalist shade. So here is the finished look. This is my minimalist at 50 everyday makeup look. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments if this is still too much for you and you want an even more minimalist look, and we'll come back and do one of those if that's what you're looking for. Thank you for watching. Please take a look at my other videos and I hope to see you again soon. Stay curious. Bye for now.